No one in Dock Ring 17 wanted the Titan-class vessel. It hung above the station like a dead god, enormous and silent, its dark hull marked by centuries of drifting dust and burned-out registry symbols. Ships passed around it at a safe distance. Even automated scanners refused to stay focused on it for long. Elias Rowe had seen it every day of his life. He worked as a junior salvage clerk, one of the lowest positions in the Galactic Registry. His job was simple: catalog abandoned property, verify ownership claims, and forward files to people who would never remember his name. Humans were tolerated in the registry, not respected. They were known as adaptable, stubborn, and useful, but rarely trusted with anything important. So when Elias received the notice, he assumed it was a mistake. The message was short and official. Notice of legal inheritance asset. Titan-class vessel registry lost heir. Elias Rowe. Human. Status ownership confirmed. Elias read it 3 times. Then he laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it made no sense. Titan-class vessels were myths now. Ancient constructs from a forgotten era, built on a scale no modern civilization dared to repeat. This one had appeared in records centuries ago, drifting into neutral space before all contact ceased. Salvage crews tried to board it once, then never again. No wreckage, no distress signal, just silence. Everyone said the same thing about it. The ship does not want visitors. Elias closed the message and went back to work. But an hour later, a senior registry officer summoned him. The officer was a tall, smooth-skinned Cathari, eyes black and unreadable. He did not invite Elias to sit. "The inheritance is valid," the officer said. "No disputes. No appeals." Elias swallowed. "Why me?" The officer's fingers tapped the console. "Unknown. The ship's original ownership records are corrupted. Your name appears as the final legal successor." "That's impossible," Elias said. "I never—" "Do not board it," the officer interrupted calmly. Elias blinked. "What?" "You may sell the claim. Transfer rights. Abandon it. Whatever you wish." The officer leaned forward slightly. "But do not board the vessel." There was no threat in the voice. "Only certainty." "Why?" Elias asked. The officer hesitated. Just for a moment. "Because every species that tried regretted it." The meeting ended there. Word spread fast. Dock workers whispered when Elias passed. Some looked at him with pity, others with fear, as if the inheritance itself were contagious. Offers arrived quickly. Corporations wanted the claim, not the ship, just the legal right to say they owned it without touching it. The prices were high. High enough to let Elias live comfortably for the rest of his life. All he had to do was sign. Elias stared at the contracts laid into the station night cycle. He thought about his small rented unit, his endless paperwork, his invisible life. And he thought about the ship. Every warning he'd heard only sharpened his curiosity. Humans had crossed oceans, deserts, and voids for less. On the 3rd day, Elias declined every offer. He filed a single request instead. Intent to board, personal inspection. The response came almost instantly. Request acknowledged. No escort authorized. No rescue coverage provided. The shuttle ride was quiet. As Elias approached the Titan-class vessel, its true scale became clear. It was not shaped like modern ships. No elegant curves. No visible weapons. It looked deliberate, as if every plate had been placed with purpose rather than style. The docking bay did not answer his hails. Elias swallowed and activated manual alignment. "All right," he muttered. "Just a look." The airlock opened the moment his shuttle touched the hull. No alarms, no resistance. Inside, the ship was dark, but not dead. The air was clean. Gravity stable. The floor lights ignited one by one as he stepped forward, guiding him deeper. The doors closed behind him. Elias turned sharply. "Hey." The hatch sealed without a sound. He stood still, heart racing, listening to the hum beneath the silence. Not loud, not threatening. "Just present?" "Okay," he said quietly. Still fine. As he walked, the corridors adjusted, lighting brightening just enough, temperature shifting slightly. The ship responded to him, but never ahead of him, as if watching, learning. He reached a central chamber. Vast, circular, empty except for a single raised platform. The moment he stepped onto it, the ship awakened. Screens flared to life around him, projecting symbols and data he did not understand. The hum deepened, not louder, but heavier. A presence filled the room, not a voice. Not yet. Elias felt it then. The pressure. It was not physical. It pressed on his thoughts, his memories. Every regret, every unfinished promise, every quiet fear he had buried under routine and survival. His knees nearly buckled. Other species had described madness, panic, overwhelming terror. Elias felt something else. Responsibility. The ship did not push him away. It waited. Elias breathed slowly. He thought of his parents, long gone, of his job, of the quiet way he had always endured rather than fled. "I don't know what you want," he said aloud, "but I'm still here." The pressure eased, just a little. A single symbol formed on the central display. Human biosignature confirmed. Elias stared. Then the ship spoke, not in sound, but in meaning, clear and undeniable. "Welcome." The lights stabilized. The room grew calm. Outside, long-range sensors finally registered a change. For the first time in centuries, the Titan-class vessel was no longer dormant, and Elias Rowe stood alone at its center, realizing that fear had never kept others away. The ship had been waiting. Elias Rowe did not move for a long time. The central chamber was quiet again, but not empty. The ship felt awake now, like a giant holding its breath. The screens around him slowly dimmed, settling into soft lines of light that followed his position. He swallowed and took a careful step off the platform. Nothing stopped him. The pressure he had felt earlier was still there, but weaker, like a heavy coat instead of a crushing weight. It did not hurt. It reminded him that the ship was aware. "Oh. All right," Elias said quietly. "Let's take this slow." As he walked, symbols appeared on the walls, rearranging themselves into basic visual language. Not words. Ideas. Directions. Warnings. Invitations. The ship was teaching him how to move inside it. Elias followed the lights down a long corridor. Doors opened before he reached them and closed after he passed. He noticed something strange. The ship never rushed him. Every system reacted only after he decided to act. It was not controlling him. It was observing. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt strange inside the vessel. Elias reached a data archive chamber. Rows of crystalline storage pillars rose from the floor like frozen trees. Some were dark. Others glowed faintly as he approached. A console activated in front of him. Access limited observer status provisional. "I don't even know what that means," Elias muttered. The console responded by projecting fragments of recorded history, not full logs, but impressions, short scenes, emotions, and outcomes. Elias saw the first boarding attempt. A non-human crew entered the ship together, confident, armed. Their thoughts were sharp, aggressive, focused on control. The ship responded by increasing internal demands, complex decisions, moral tests, responsibility loops. The crew panicked, not because of danger, but because the ship refused to obey. They fled within minutes. The next scene showed a different species, calm, highly intelligent. They tried to isolate the ship's systems, break it into manageable pieces. The ship responded by presenting ethical dilemmas with no correct answer. They argued. They froze. They left. One scene after another showed the same pattern. The ship did not attack. It did not trap anyone. It overwhelmed them with choice. Elias leaned against the console, breathing slowly. "So you're not a weapon," he whispered. "You're a test." The lights shifted slightly. As Elias explored deeper, the pressure returned. But now it came in waves. When he entered certain sections, memory surfaced. Times he had failed. Times he had stayed silent when he should have spoken. The ship was not punishing him. It was measuring him. At one point, Elias reached a long observation hall. The ceiling was transparent, showing the stars drifting past. A single chair waited at the center. He did not want to sit, but he did. The moment he did, the ship presented a scenario directly into his mind. A failing colony. Limited resources, no perfect solution. Save one group and another suffers. Delay, and all lose. Elias felt the familiar tightening in his chest. He had seen problems like this before, on a smaller scale. Dock shortages, supply errors. Lives reduced to numbers. He did not look for the best answer. He looked for the least cruel one. "I'd stay," he said aloud. "Help as much as I can, even if it's not enough." The scenario faded. The pressure eased again. Somewhere deep in the ship, the system unlocked. Outside the Titan-class vessel, Dock Ring 17 was in chaos. Long-range sensors finally confirmed what many feared. The ship was drawing power. Old reactors, thought dead, were stabilizing. Structural systems were aligning. The registry issued alerts. Observers gathered at safe distances. "It's active," one officer said. "But there's no weapon charge?" "That's impossible," another replied. "Titan-class ships don't activate without a command crew." A third voice spoke quietly. "There is a crew! Just one human," someone scoffed. Silence followed. Back inside, Elias found living quarters. Simple, functional, untouched. The bed adjusted to his size automatically. Food synthesis systems activated with basic human nutrition patterns. The ship knew him. As Elias rested, the ship continued to test him, not with fear, but with patience. Systems waited for his input instead of forcing it. Problems appeared, then paused, giving him time to think. Elias realized something important. The ship did not reward speed, it rewarded endurance. Days passed. Elias repaired small systems using guidance the ship provided only after he tried himself. When he failed, the ship did not correct him immediately. It waited. When he succeeded, it unlocked more access. Eventually, the central chamber called him back. This time, the platform rose when he stepped onto it. The presence returned, stronger than before, but no longer overwhelming. A clear message formed across every screen. Compatibility confirmed. Primary failure mode identified Abundance. Elias frowned. Avoidance? The meaning came instantly. Other species avoided responsibility when it became too heavy. They sought control, delegation, escape. Humans endured. Not because they were stronger, but because they stayed. "You were waiting," Elias said slowly. "Not for the smartest, not for the strongest." The ship responded with a single confirmation pulse. Correct Elias felt a strange mix of fear and pride. What happens now? The answer was not immediate. Outside, the registry made a decision. A delegation vessel approached the Titan-class ship, broadcasting non-threatening signals. "Human Elias Rowe," the message said. "By authority of the Galactic Registry, you are ordered to exit the vessel for debriefing." Inside, Elias felt the ship pause, not in hesitation, but in consideration. The pressure returned, lighter than before. A choice. Elias took a breath. "I'll talk to them," he said, "but I'm not leaving." The ship accepted this. Lights shifted. External communication channels opened, filtered, controlled. The Titan-class vessel did not power down. For the first time, the galaxy realized the truth. The ship had never rejected others. They had rejected what it asked of them. And a human had finally stayed long enough to listen. Elias Rowe stood in the central chamber as voices filled the air. The communication channel was open now, carefully filtered by the Titan-class vessel. The images of several alien officials appeared as soft holograms around him. None of them were physically present. No one was brave enough for that. "Human Elias Rowe," the lead official said, "you are in possession of a restricted artifact. For your safety and ours, you must exit the vessel immediately."
Elias kept his voice calm.
"I'm not in danger." The officials exchanged glances. "You cannot know that," another replied. "This ship has driven entire crews to mental collapse." Elias looked around the chamber. The ship hummed steadily, patient as ever. "It didn't hurt them," Elias said. "It asked too much of them." That answer unsettled the officials more than panic ever could. Outside the vessel, observation ships increased their distance. Inside the registry, emergency committees were formed. No weapons were deployed. No threats were spoken aloud. But fear spread quickly. The Titan-class vessel was not supposed to choose, and yet it had. Inside the ship, Elias felt the pressure rise again, but differently now. It was not testing his fear or his memories. It was testing his judgment. The central platform lowered, turning into a command interface. Symbols shifted, forming simplified patterns Elias could understand. The ship was not giving him control. It was offering responsibility. A request formed in his mind. Define priority. Elias frowned slightly. "Priority for what?" The answer came as a cascade of information. The ship had been built as a guardian vessel, not a warship, not a conqueror. Its purpose was to oversee unstable regions of space, prevent collapse, and make decisions no council wanted to make. It required a commander who could live with imperfect outcomes. Other species sought certainty, clear success, clean solutions. The ship did not offer those. Elias exhaled slowly. "You want me to decide who gets help? And who doesn't?" The ship did not deny it. Elias felt the familiar weight settle on his shoulders. He had carried it before, in smaller ways. Choosing which salvage reports to push forward, which errors to correct quietly, which rules to bend to protect someone who would never thank him. He had never been praised for it. But he had endured. Outside, the registry delegation changed tactics. "Elias," the lead official said more gently, "you don't have to do this. You can leave. We will secure the vessel. Study it safely." Elias almost smiled. "That's what everyone else tried," he said. The ship presented its first live scenario. A distant system, aging star, failing orbital stabilizers, 3 inhabited stations, only enough resources to save 2. The officials watched the data in real time. They waited for hesitation, for panic. Elias closed his eyes. He didn't rush. He studied the numbers, but he also listened to what the ship was showing him. Social structures, adaptability, long-term survival chances. Finally, he spoke. "Stabilize Station 2 and 3, he said quietly. "Station 1 has better evacuation capacity." We helped them move. The ship paused, then executed the command. Outside, sensors confirmed it. Energy signatures shifted. A crisis no one had yet noticed was already being resolved. The room went silent. "You just altered a system without council approval," one official whispered. "I prevented a disaster," Elias replied. "There's a difference." The ship recorded the decision, not as success or failure, but as accepted burden. Hours passed. Then more. The ship continued presenting choices. None of them were clean. None of them were easy. Elias did not ask if he was doing well. He asked what needed to be done next. Slowly, access expanded. Sections of the ship that had remained sealed opened to him. Navigation systems activated at partial capacity. Long-range sensors aligned. The Titan-class vessel was not waking up. It was standing up. Across the galaxy, reactions shifted from fear to something deeper. Respect, not for the ship, for the human inside it. Analysts studied Elias's decisions. They noticed a pattern. He never chose the option that protected him. He chose the option he could live with. Back in the central chamber, the ship finally spoke more clearly than ever before. Not as a single word, not as a command. As a truth, command is not authority. Command is endurance. Elias felt his throat tighten. "You built this for humans," he said. The ship corrected him gently. "We built this for those who stay," Elias laughed softly. "That explains why no one else wanted it." A new message appeared. "Command status. Incomplete." Elias straightened. "What's missing?" The ship showed him. A long-range trajectory. A region of space marked by collapse, instability, and silent distress signals. The kind no one responded to because helping meant staying too long. A test not of ability, but of commitment. Outside, the registry delegation raised their voices. "You cannot take that vessel there," one official said urgently. "That region consumes resources and commanders alike." Elias looked at the stars beyond the transparent ceiling. "I know," he said. The ship waited. Elias placed his hand on the interface. "I'll go," he said. "But we don't rush. We prepare. And we don't leave people behind just because it's inconvenient." The ship accepted his terms. Systems aligned. For the first time, the Titan-class vessel moved under human command. Not toward conquest. Not toward glory. Toward responsibility. And across the galaxy, a quiet realization spread. The most dangerous thing about humanity was not their strength. It was their willingness to stay when others walked away. The Titan-class vessel moved slowly. It did not rush toward the unstable region of space. Its massive engines adjusted with care, as if the ship itself understood the danger of haste. Every course correction was deliberate. Every system check was repeated twice. Elias Rowe stood on the observation deck, watching stars stretch and shift as they entered a sector most ships avoided. This region had many names: the quiet collapse, the long drain, the place that never lets go. Civilizations had once lived here. Trade routes had passed through it. Then stars aged badly. Gravity wells twisted. Supply lines failed. One by one, governments decided it was easier to leave than to stay. No wars were fought here. Just abandonment. The ship showed Elias faint signals. Old distress calls still repeating. Automated systems still hoping someone might answer. Elias closed his eyes for a moment. "So this is what you were built for," he said softly. The ship responded by opening more data to him. Not commands. Context, histories, outcomes. Previous councils had debated this region many times. Each time the conclusion was the same. Helping costs too much. Inside the vessel, Elias felt the pressure again. Not sharp. Not crushing. Heavy. The weight of knowing that every choice would hurt someone, somewhere. Outside, the galaxy watched. Registry observers tracked the Titan-class vessel's movement with growing unease. Analysts argued. Politicians panicked quietly. "He's committing the ship," one official said. "If this fails, we lose centuries of technology." Another replied, "If it succeeds, we lose control." Human representatives were finally invited into the discussion. For the first time in recorded history, humans were not asked to assist, but to explain. "We don't think Elias is trying to save everything," a human delegate said carefully. "We think he's trying to save what can still be saved." That answer did not comfort anyone. Inside the ship, the first true test arrived. A station near a dying star had lost structural stability. Evacuation would require days. The star would destabilize in hours. The ship presented the numbers. Impossible. Elias stared at the projections. He could save the station's data archives, or part of its population, or redirect resources to prevent future failures elsewhere. He could not save all of them. His hands shook slightly. "Show me the people," he said. The ship did. Faces. Names. Ordinary lives. Families who had stayed because no one else would help them leave. Elias felt something twist inside his chest. "I won't choose from a distance," he said. "Take us closer." The ship did not object. As the Titan-class vessel moved into the system, alarms appeared across external monitors. Radiation levels rose. Structural stress increased. Observers outside gasped. "He's risking the vessel," someone whispered. Inside, Elias felt the ship strain, but not resist. Together, they worked. The ship provided options. Elias made calls. Systems were reconfigured not for efficiency but for care. Evacuation paths were improvised. Energy was rerouted in ways no algorithm would approve. They did not save everyone, but they saved more than anyone expected. When the last transport cleared the station, Elias did not celebrate. He sat down slowly, exhausted. The ship recorded the outcome, not as victory, as endurance maintained. Days passed, then weeks. The Titan-class vessel became a constant presence in the region. It did not fix everything. It stabilized what it could. It connected forgotten systems. It stayed long after other ships would have left. Elias slept less, ate when reminded. The ship adjusted lighting and schedules gently, never forcing rest but encouraging it. It was watching him now as much as he watched it. The pressure did not fade. If anything, it grew. Because staying meant remembering every choice, every face. One cycle, Elias stood alone in the command chamber, staring at a star map full of fading lights. "I can't save them all," he said quietly. The ship responded, not with comfort, but truth. Acknowledged, Elias nodded. "Then I'll save who I can." Outside the region, something strange happened. Trade vessels began rerouting closer, not through the dangerous systems, but near them. Seeing stability, even partial, made risk feel possible again. Small convoys followed. Then relief missions, then independent volunteers. Not because the region was safe, because someone had stayed. The registry noticed. Policies changed, slowly, carefully. Words like acceptable loss began to disappear from official documents. Long-term responsibility models replaced short-term cost analysis. No one said it out loud, but everyone knew why. Back inside the Titan-class vessel, the ship unlocked its deepest archives. Elias saw the truth at last. The ship had never been abandoned. Its previous commanders had died inside it, not from madness, but from refusal. They could not accept the cost of staying, so the ship sealed itself, waiting for someone who would not ask when the burden ended. Elias leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "You knew this would happen," he said. "Probability high," the ship replied. Outcome uncertain. Elias smiled tiredly. Figures. A message arrived from the registry. Short, careful. Human Elias Rowe, your actions have altered galactic stability metrics. You are requested, not ordered, to advise the Council. Elias did not answer immediately. He looked around the ship, at the systems that now moved with him, not for him, at the region of space slowly learning to breathe again. "I'll advise," he said finally. "But I'm not leaving." The ship accepted this without comment. As the Titan-class vessel continued its work, fear slowly changed shape across the galaxy. No longer fear of the ship, fear of the question it asked. If a human can stay, why didn't we? And Elias Rowe, once invisible, now carried a truth no title could remove. Saving the galaxy was not about power. It was about staying long enough to pay the cost. The galaxy changed quietly. There was no announcement. No grand declaration, no sudden shift of power. Instead, small things began to happen, things that would have been unthinkable before. Rescue requests that once expired unanswered now received replies. Trade routes once marked non-viable were reviewed again. Long-term missions were approved without fixed end dates. The Titan-class vessel remained where it was. Elias Rowe stood on the observation deck, watching a line of civilian ships move carefully through stabilized space. They kept their distance from the giant vessel, not out of fear, but respect. They knew who was inside. The Registry Council met with Elias regularly now, always through projection. They never ordered him. They never threatened him. They asked questions instead. "How do you decide?" one counselor asked. Elias thought for a moment. "I decide what I can live with tomorrow," he said simply. That answer spread faster than any report. The Titan-class vessel continued its work. It did not fix the galaxy. It did not promise safety. It reduced suffering where it could and accepted limits where it could not. The ship had unlocked everything now, every system, every archive, every record of those who had come before. Elias read them slowly. Commanders from many species had entered the ship over centuries. Brilliant minds, skilled leaders. They all failed the same way. They asked the ship one question too early. When does this end? The ship had no answer for that. Elias never asked. One cycle, as the vessel drifted between two recovering systems, the ship initiated a final evaluation. The central chamber brightened. The familiar pressure returned, not heavy, not sharp, complete. Command status. Confirmed. Elias felt a quiet ache in his chest. So that's it, the ship responded. There is no end state. Elias nodded. Yeah, I figured. Across the galaxy, historians began rewriting old records. Titan-class vessels were no longer listed as failed projects or dangerous relics. They were reclassified as endurance constructs. Built not to win wars, built to hold the line when no one else would. And humanity's name appeared beside them, not as owners, not as creators, as compatible. Human representatives found themselves invited into discussions they had never been allowed to enter before, not as labor, not as backup, as voices of caution. As reminders, a human phrase became quietly famous across species. Someone has to stay. Elias felt the cost of it more each day. He aged faster than he expected, not physically, but inside. The weight never lifted. The ship helped him manage it, but never removed it. It was not meant to. One day, a young non-human envoy requested permission to board the Titan-class vessel. Elias considered it carefully. He allowed it. The envoy stepped inside and immediately felt the pressure. Fear crossed their face, then understanding. They did not last long. But before leaving, they turned to Elias. "How do you carry this?" they asked. Elias answered honestly. "I don't carry it alone." The envoy left changed. So did many others. The Titan-class vessel became a symbol, not of fear, of responsibility. Years passed. The region once called the Quiet Collapse was no longer silent. It was not rich. It was not easy. But it was alive. On a quiet cycle, Elias sat alone in the command chamber. The stars outside drifted slowly, steady, and calm. "I won't be here forever," he said to the ship. "Ack! Nowled!" the ship replied. "What happens when I'm gone?" The ship paused longer than usual. The question was always who would stay next. Elias smiled faintly. "Yeah," he said. That sounds right. The ship had already begun recording. Not for him. For those who would come after. It documented not his success, but his endurance. Not his victories, but his choices. Not his authority, but his refusal to walk away. Across the galaxy, a new understanding settled. Humanity was not feared because it conquered. Humanity was feared because it stayed. When situations became unbearable. When costs grew too high. When solutions were imperfect and painful. Humans remained, not because they enjoyed suffering, but because someone had to live with the outcome. The final entry in the Titan-class vessel's public record was short. The vessel was never abandoned. It was waiting for those who do not leave. Elias Rowe never became famous. He never ruled, never commanded fleets, never stood on a stage. He stayed on a ship that asked everything and gave no promises. And because of that, the galaxy learned a new definition of strength. Not power, not control, but the courage to stay when leaving would be easier.